People across the country were watching the night that Skylab came down. But did they see something else that night? Something that even the local news admitted was not Skylab.
There it is, look at that.
Chill to the bone.
There are moments in life when something shifts, when the air becomes heavy and the world feels just a little bit off. That was how it felt back in the summer of 1979 on a warm night in July. I was a teenager in high school living with my dad, a World War II veteran who had just retired from the VA. We had heard on the news that Skylab, America's first space station, was going to come crashing down, and like most people, we were eager to catch a glimpse of history falling from the sky.
All over the world, concern is mounting as to whether anyone will be injured by flying metal from the spacecraft.
That evening, we stood out in our front yard, staring up at the darkened sky, hoping to catch a glimpse of something spectacular. My dad, always a practical man, had his doubts about what Skylab had been studying up there. Was it aliens, he joked? But there was a flicker of curiosity in his voice, like he wasn't entirely ruling it out. We talked about all the wild things it might have been looking for, things that seemed ripped straight from a J.P. Lovecraft novel. We weren't the only ones out there that night either. Our neighbors had wandered over, just as eager to see the re-entry. And soon, we were all standing there together, eyes trained on the stars. It was just after dark when we saw it.
There it is, look at that.
At first, we thought it might be Skylab, but something wasn't right. It wasn't a streak of fire or debris falling through the atmosphere. No, this was quite different.
Look at that.
Something we couldn't explain. Hovering high in the sky, we saw what looked like a red arrow.
What is that? You see that?
Perfectly illuminated, cutting through the night. It wasn't like anything we'd ever seen before. The shape was almost like a merging arrow traffic sign, except that this one was a brilliant red, pointing from south to north, blinking. One of the neighbors muttered, "Is that the Goodyear blimp?" But my dad shook his head. "Too high," he said, his voice steady. "And it's flat, not round like a blimp. Whatever it is, it's not a blimp."
We just saw some weird red arrows in the sky.
We all stood there, staring, our necks craned up as the blinking arrow held its position in the sky. The light was ultra clear, sharp against the blackness. We were waiting for it to move, to make some kind of sense, but it didn't. It just stayed there, suspended, defying explanation. And then, as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. No movement, no fading, just gone. 1 second it was there, the next, the sky was empty. We all exchanged confused looks, trying to piece together what we had just witnessed. My dad was silent, which was rare for him. He always had an explanation for everything, but not this time. None of us knew what to say. We had no answers, only more questions. Later that night, we turned on the 10 o'clock news, hoping to hear something, anything, that would explain what we saw. The anchor opened the broadcast with a single line that I'll never forget. What you saw in the sky tonight wasn't Skylab. And that was it. No further explanation, no follow-up. The newscast moved on as if nothing unusual had happened.
So we can join the party right now with our Eyewitness News Entertainment reporter Joyce Colhaywick, who is live at the scene.
But for us, the mystery lingered. For years, I thought about that night, the red arrow,
There it is, look at that.
the way it appeared so suddenly, the way it vanished without a trace. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever we saw wasn't just some trick of the light or some stray piece of space debris. It was something else. Something we weren't supposed to see. It wasn't until 20 years later, on the anniversary of Skylab's re-entry, that I decided to see if anyone else had seen what we had that night. A few quick searches brought up reports filed with MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. What we saw wasn't an isolated event. It had been reported as a mass sighting. Dozens of people had seen the same thing all across the country. What was it? A UFO? A military experiment? Something from another world? No one seemed to know for sure, and to this day, there's been no definitive answer. Whatever was in the sky that night, it left behind more questions than answers. Will it come back? Will we ever truly know what we saw? Maybe. Or maybe some mysteries are meant to stay unsolved.
Skylab was the United States' first space station, and it launched in 1973. Its orbit decayed and it disintegrated in the atmosphere, unmanned, on the night of July 11th, 1979.
Eyewitnesses compared it to a fireworks display, with flashes of different colored lights, followed by a series of loud sonic booms.
Skylab's coming back home to Earth was highly anticipated. T-shirts were made and even contests were held about where exactly Skylab would fall to Earth.
If anyone sold you a hat to stop bits of Skylab falling on your head, and several thousand have been sold in America, you've probably wasted your money.
But this extra spectacle meant that there were plenty of additional eyes on the sky the night of July 11th, 1979.
British Airways say they may delay their flights as America's Skylab space station falls to Earth in the next 36 hours.
So what exactly did Bones see?
Welcome to the Wolf Den.
So great story, Bones. Now, the knack with this one is, this is actually 100% legit, right? This is your true-to-life story.
Right. Actually, yes, indeed it is.
How close to perfect geometry was that? When you say red arrow, is that just like the best descriptor? Or was this like absolute straight lines, perfect geometry?
Oh my gosh. This was absolutely perfect geometry. There were no, there was nothing that was vague about it. It was clear. The lights were sharp against the darkness. And it was something, a light that I've never seen before. It was 1979, and I've never seen lights that bright. I didn't think that we had anything that was like that. And the outline of the arrows was, gosh, it was kind of like a merging traffic sign. If you've ever seen one of those getting onto the highway, you see these little arrowhead type of designs, like flashing from one side of the screen to the other, telling you to merge over. It was a lot like that, but again, the lights were ultra clear, bright, sharp, and they were really high up in the sky. And
that's interesting to me right there. So anytime we're talking about like mysterious lights, I love the topic, of course. The question is, okay, is it a light source? Is it a reflection? Is it a projection of some kind? With this being a clear night, I don't think there's any surface, right, for it to be to reflect upon or to project upon. Is it a light source? And when we're talking about a light source, I mean, it travels like forever. I mean, you can see light unless something's obscuring it, you can see light. So, like, I'm kind of on board with you when you say, like, okay, it was really high, like really high altitude. But, like, what is it that's telling ourselves that? Because I don't know that we have a really good gauge on that when it comes to a light source.
I really wish I could give you a little bit better idea, but it was 1979. The best lights that we could see in the sky around that time were advertising a car lot up the street. They had shine spotlights in the sky. That was about the brightest lights that I'd ever seen at that time. Maybe going to a baseball game or something like that. But as far as like LED technology, things that were super ultra clear, I don't recall seeing until maybe the 90s or later. And there was nothing for it to reflect off of. We were out in our front yard, and there was an empty lot, and after the empty lot there were streets and neighborhoods, and it was dark. There was no water around. There was nothing that was shining in the sky that we could see anywhere. We just looked up, and then all of a sudden it was there. It seemed like it was underneath whatever was up there. It was flat.
Okay. So, like, you had an impression like there was something above or behind whatever this light, and you could maybe tell that because, like, it was blocking out the stars, or what? Like a shadow above it?
Yes, that would probably be a better description of almost a shadow, or it was blocking out an area of the sky, and it seemed like it was a large craft, but it was completely dark. The only area that we could see was clearly was the arrows, was the red arrows, and you would think that with that type of light, it would have illuminated maybe the underneath or the area that were around the lights, but that wasn't the case. They were just the lights. It was really an incredible sight to see.
Okay, and when the lights first appeared and when they disappeared, finally, like, forget the blinking for a moment, did the shadowy area, the impression that there's an aircraft up there, did that appear and disappear the same?
Yes, it seemed like they were related. When the craft appeared, or when the lights appeared, it seemed like there was something was there all of a sudden. Something that, it was the oddest thing. You couldn't quite see it, but you could feel that there was something massive. And just looking around that part of the sky, it did block out some of the stars. But that wasn't, wasn't really sticking out in our minds as much as what were we looking at, what was causing this light, and what, we were looking at this like, okay, is this Skylab? And if it is Skylab, shouldn't it be moving across the sky and not staying stationary in one spot?
How long did the sighting last in total then?
You know, I'd have to say it was up there maybe about 3 to 4 minutes. So we had watched it. We were sitting up there watching it for what I remember. Yeah. At least a minute to 2 minutes, because we were sitting up and we were just watching this thing, just blink and stay in this same spot without moving. That's what was kind of grabbing our curiosity. It was hovering, and we thought it could have been the Goodyear blimp, because that was the only thing that we'd had been used to seeing with any type of lighting in the sky.
And your dad said something about, no, that's not the blimp because it's the wrong shape. And so when he said that, he's talking about like this impression that there's an aircraft that's emitting this.
Yes, that was what we thought, because he made sense. He says that's not the blimp, because when we looked at the blimp, it was round, and the lighted signage was on the side, and you could look up there and you could see, oh, that's the blimp. It was very clear, but this lighting was underneath. It wasn't on the side. It wasn't rounded at all. It was flat underneath whatever it was, and it was flat.
And then you come back in after this event, after this experience, and you're watching what I would assume is probably like the 10 o'clock news. Was it that night that they reported this?
Yes, it was. So yeah, I think this happened, of what I remember, around 8 o'clock in the evening. And then we wrapped up our talk with the neighbor, went inside, and we only mentioned it a couple of times, but Dad was like, well, the news is going to come on. We'll get the scoop. So we waited. The news came on, 10 o'clock, Eyewitness News, Chris Maru came on, and I remember he led off the broadcast with a line that just chilled me to the bone. What you saw in the sky tonight wasn't Skylab. And then that was it. He moved on to the next story. Nothing. And my dad and I just looked at each other like, is that all you're going to say about it? And yeah, we were pretty shocked, and we couldn't find any information anywhere, except our neighbor said, did you see that? And of course it brought up a lot of questions, like why did they just say that? Why didn't they expand on it? Why didn't they tell us what it is? Did they know what it is?
So what's your final takeaway of this? If you go into full speculation mode, what do you say this is?
I'm saying this was a craft that we weren't supposed to see. It was...
Oh, tinfoil hats coming on, don them.
I think this was just something that we weren't supposed to see. I think it was either an experiment or it was a craft. Maybe some mysteries are meant to stay unsolved.
There it is, look at that.